Hey everyone, Dietitian Dina here. Today we are going to talk about a topic that I probably get asked about more than anything else in relation to nutrition. And that is, Dina, how much should I be eating? Tell me how much to eat. What portion should I be eating? I get asked this question all the time. So we're going to break it down today and give you some really clear direction on what that could look like for you. So first of all, before we jump into talking about actual portions and how to determine the quantity of food, I think it's really important that we first talk about the frequency of eating. So we hear often that we should, which I hate that word, that kind of implies judgment, we should be eating every 2 to 3 hours. Other people know we should be fasting and going like a long period of time without eating and then eating all of our food in a short window. So I'm here to kind of dispel those mostly as myths and really let's look at this from a more practical standpoint. Now, certainly if somebody naturally fasts, skips breakfast and doesn't eat for, 14 or 16 hours because that's their natural kind of mode of operating, then I'm not going to go against that. But I don't think we should intentionally do that if that is not what our body feels like doing. The other thing, the whole eat every 2 to 3 hours, doesn't work for a lot of people either. So, to give you an idea of where I'm coming from, I do primarily specialize in individuals that are suffering with binge eating, emotional overeating, chronic dieting. And one of the symptoms that I most often hear from them is that they're constantly thinking about food. And so by getting somebody onto a meal plan where they're eating every 2 to 3 hours, that is most likely just going to keep them stuck thinking about food all the time, right? There's more snacks to plan, more meals to plan. The next eating opportunity is going to be that much sooner. And so I want to get people away from thinking about food all the time because that helps somebody develop a better relationship with food, especially if they're struggling with emotional overeating. So that being said, what do I recommend? So I generally recommend that people eat a satisfying meal. Again, I've defined satisfying in the PF3 video if you haven't seen that, but a satisfying meal is something that's adequate, it's balanced, and it tastes good, right? Those are the three elements to make a meal satisfying. So eating a satisfying meal every 3 to 5 hours. If a meal does not last you, 4 to 5 hours. If a meal doesn't last you 4 to 5 hours, you may not have eaten enough. So that's usually a good indication that you didn't eat enough. Now, certainly there's going to be days and times where we don't eat an adequate meal or a satisfying meal and we're hungry after 3 hours. By all means, eat. We don't wait for the 3 to 5 hours to hit or the 4 to 5 hours to hit before we eat. Go ahead and eat. But the idea is that if we can plan meals that are going to last us a little longer, then we can make it 4 to 5 hours. And then when we arrive to mealtime, we want to be hungry, right? But we don't want to be starving. So that is the goal, planning meals that are satiating, they're satisfying, and they're going to last us 4 to 5 hours. That being said, sometimes our schedule doesn't allow us to eat every 4 to 5 hours, which is where snacks come in. So if you know that you're going to be outside of that window of when you're going to get hungry again, that's where snacks come in. What I caution against with snacks is try to not wait until you're meal hungry to eat a snack, right? Because whatever level of hunger you are when you start eating, your body is likely going to dictate that you continue eating until you are fully satisfied. I see this often with clients. They wait until 5:30, maybe even 6 o'clock to have their afternoon snack. But by this time, their stomach may be meal hungry and they don't understand why they can't just have a cookie or a granola bar or a piece of fruit because their body's saying, no, you started, let's keep it going. Or you come home from work, you're starving, you're picking at things while you're cooking dinner. Your body's going to keep picking. Once it starts and knows food is there, it's going to want to fulfill that until you are fully satisfied. So if you start eating when you're meal hungry, your body's going to dictate a meal's worth of food. So if you're trying to just snack, likely won't work. So oftentimes we can push that snack a little sooner, and that'll allow us to have a snack when we're snack hungry, right? Which will carry us over so that maybe we'll be meal hungry by the time we get the opportunity to actually sit down and have a meal. So just a few things to keep in mind. So every 4 to 5 hours for a meal. When we're going longer, we want to try to back that up a little bit and try to have a snack when we're snack hungry, right? Not waiting till we're meal hungry. So that is meal timing. So we want to get our portions large enough to where we're going to feel satiated for that 4 to 5 hour period, or at least until the next snack. And I don't actually give my clients actual portion sizes that say, eat half a cup of this and eat this much protein and this much fat. Now we do look, okay, we want to have protein at our meals. We want to have carbs. We want to have fat. Sure, mix in some vegetables if you're, if you're feeling like it. Those are all things that are going to help you feel satisfied because that adds that balance component to the meal. Again, we need meals to be adequate, balanced, and taste good. So what I use to help clients gauge is this. You cannot see it because it's probably backwards because I have my camera flopped. But this is a 1 to 10 scale, and I'll upload a copy into the module that goes with this video. 1 to 10 scale of how hungry or full you are. So this is what's going to help determine how much to eat. So to give you an idea of what's on this scale, 1 is you're weak and lightheaded. I mean, you're just starving, your stomach acid is churning, you might be shaky, you might have a headache, really, really hungry, right? 10 is you're like painfully full. Oh my God, I need to unbutton my pants. I can't breathe. You feel nauseous. Like, we're trying to stay more in the middle of that scale. So think of it as almost like a pendulum. If we go really hungry, then we're probably going to eat quick. We're going to naturally choose foods that are more calorically dense. And then, so they're not going to fill our stomach up as much for the amount of volume we're consuming. And it's going to take a while for the body to realize it's full. And then the pendulum is just going to swing all the way to to the other side where we're like stuffed. Oh, I ate too much, right? So the farther we swing this way, oftentimes the farther we swing that way. So the idea is that we want to come to a meal hungry, but like uncomfortable, right? Like a little uncomfortable. Our stomach is rumbling. We're ready for a meal, but we're not very uncomfortable. We're not irritable. No shakiness, no physical symptoms going on in the body. It's really still what I call stomach hunger, and not that body hunger, right? And then the idea is to stop eating when we feel either perfectly comfortable and satisfied or possibly a little bit uncomfortable, right? And I know that there's some people out there in the intuitive eating world, they're like, no, stop when you're perfectly satisfied. Like, don't eat until you feel uncomfortable. The reason that I disagree with that is because sometimes, depending on what we're eating, especially if we're eating something healthy, like a salad or something that has a lot of volume to it, but isn't very maybe calorically dense, the stomach will get full, right? But it's going to digest that very quickly because there's not a lot to it. And then we're not going to be able to make it 4 to 5 hours without getting hungry, right? Now there's things we can do to that by adding, let's using the salad as an example, adding fat, adding carbs to the salad, adding nutrient dense foods. That's going to help it to be satisfying longer, but it's still a very high volume food, right? In order for us to feel full. And so we may need to eat until we're a little uncomfortable if that's going to last us long enough. Now, let's say we're eating something that's very calorically dense. I'll use an example that I ate recently. There was this place next to my office that sells these like amazing shrimp and grits. They probably put a pound of butter in them and cream and I don't know what else, but they are absolutely delicious. But I can eat a pretty small portion of that. I don't actually feel that full, like because there's not a lot of volume in my stomach. But if I wait 20 to 30 minutes, I will start to feel slightly uncomfortable. And then I notice when I eat that, like if I eat it at lunch, I'm barely hungry when dinner comes. So that tells me that item, that food is very calorically dense. And because my body, it's allowing my body to not get hungry for a long time, right? So it depends on the food that you're eating in terms of where you want to end up on this 1 to 10 scale. So keep in mind that this is just a guide. So if you're eating a well-balanced meal, you should be able to follow this guide pretty closely, stopping in the yellow areas, and then, maintaining through the green areas. And, I don't want to say totally, the red areas are just going to happen sometimes, right? Like food tastes good, or like we got really busy and we missed eating on time. Like this is life, right? But we're trying to stay out of these areas as much as we can, right? But we're not always going to eat perfectly balanced meals, right? Sometimes we're going to eat that really rich, creamy, calorically dense, yummy shrimp and grits, right? Or whatever that food is, pizza or something fried. And sometimes, I certainly may eat a meal that's like very light and fills me up a lot because there's a lot of volume to it, but then it's not gonna, keep me full as long. So that just happens. But if we try to keep meals balanced, and as you learn through the PF3 modules, you'll realize like, oh, okay, I ate this food and I was hungry again in 2 hours. What did I need to add to that meal? Did I need to add protein? Did I need to add fat? Was there not enough carb? Is that why I craved something afterwards? So if you have added to your package the food reviews in the Practice Better app, I can also help with that because you can fill out hunger levels, fullness levels, before and after meals. And so a lot of times I'm looking, okay, here's the timing. So-and-so put that they're starving, right? So I'm going to look back at that previous meal and I can help you kind of problem solve that to figure out maybe what we need, what, may have benefited you at the previous meal. And also like, obviously keeping in mind what's realistic, sometimes life just happens and it's not going to be perfect. So we have to also be okay with that. But that is my guide for how to determine your portions, is keeping it really simple, having those adequate, satisfying meals, trying to eat enough so that you're enough and with enough balance and enough pleasure mixed in there that it's going to last you 4 to 5 hours, and following this hunger satiety scale that I will attach to the module. And then of course, if you have to go longer, that's where snacks come in. That pretty much sums it up. All right. If you have questions, please reach out, and happy mealtime. Bye.